Dave, Alvin, welcome back.
Great to be back.
Good to have you back here at eTown. Hey, it's so good to hear your road-weary voice after all these years with those particular songs. It's pretty cool. And I know it's funny because later on we're going to hear from Jimmy Dale Gilmore, and you guys have been out doing shows together.
Yeah.
And if I were to imagine two voices that would be about as different from each other as could be, that might be you two.
Yeah, the voices are different, but the soul's the same, you know.
Yeah, and the musical roots. You guys must have listened to the same stuff when you were coming up, probably.
Yeah, you know what? Jimmy and I have known each other for 30-some years, but we've never, outside of like, say, you know, end of the show sing-along kind of things, we've never just sat down and played guitars together. And the more that we started doing that, the more we started discovering, that we kind of come from pretty much the same place in many ways, you know. You know, we kind of finger-picking pre-war blues and ragtime and hillbilly music, you know.
Right.
And so, like I was saying earlier, it's this tour has become not stump the other guy, but like, hey, you know this one? And then, sure, what key? You know, and then you play it, and maybe you screw it up, maybe you don't. But it's been great. It's kind of liberating, you know.
Well, it's also liberating for the audience, I'm sure, because we are exposed to so much stuff that's pretty well dialed in.
I think it's my major complaint about modern music is that it's all dialed in.
Yeah.
You know, I went to see a couple of years back. You know, you see things on TV, and it's all choreographed, right? The dance steps, the lights, everything. And I went to see a particular singer-songwriter, and everything in the show was choreographed, everything. And we're talking a singer-songwriter show.
Wow.
Like, the guitar player would go to a particular spot to do his guitar solo, and there'd be a spotlight on him, and then he'd have his moment in the sun, then he'd go back into the shadows. And that's great, you know. I'm all for, you know, I think the Temptations did that stuff better, but, you know. But for me, I like things, you know, especially the older I get, the more I like, well, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah. Real is a valuable commodity these days. Real is something people need more and more of. Let me ask just a couple of things before we get back to music, because we've got a lot of songs to get to. You have a pretty new record with your brother, Lost Time.
Yeah.
Not as if you haven't been busy, but you and he had lost some time.
Yeah, well, we didn't make music together for just about 30 years.
Yeah.
You know, we were typical brothers. And then my brother had a health scare. He was on tour in Spain, and make a long story short, he died and was dead for somewhere between 10 to 20 minutes, we're not sure. And then a beautiful Spanish doctor named Dr. Mariela Cifuentes got on top of him, beat the living crap out of him, brought him back to life. And I've always wanted to do that, so I had to live through.
Too bad you weren't there
the
then.
Spanish doctor. Oh, I would have. So I get a phone call. I'm sitting in California, and I get a phone call, you know, and they say your brother passed away, and then, you know, I'm sitting there, and you go through the list of regrets, and yeah, I felt bad that we hadn't made some records of what we grew up doing best, you know, and we grew up playing and following around old blues singers and blues performers, and my brother from a very early age was a great singer. And we didn't not do it in the Blasters, but we downplayed it. And I just thought, well, if he gets out of this, we're going to make some records. So we did. We made two. We made one that it was all Big Bill Brunsey songs, and one, the most recent one was just various songs that we've been loving since we were kids, written by everybody from Leroy Carr to Oscar Brown Jr. to Willie Dixon to James Brown. You know.
Those are some pretty good names.
Yeah.
And so are you doing shows together as brothers or as Blasters? Or
No, I'm not in the Blasters. It's Dave Alvin and Phil Alvin. Yeah, we were up for 3 years, and then I realized, you know, my brother's health is still fragile, and I realized I might be killing him.
Yeah.
So we're still doing some shows, but not like we were. And it's great to have my brother back, I have to say.
Yeah.
I'm extremely lucky.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool music you guys are making together. Again.
Yeah.
I also know you just this is sounding like a tour of calamities, but I just noticed that you were also sitting in for, filling in some pretty big shoes, sitting in for the temporarily injured David Hidalgo in Los Lobos. So
Yeah.
that must have been an amazing experience to be that guy.
Yeah, I did it once before, and it was a kick, but this was up in Chicago, and I get a phone call like a week before saying, David had an accident, can you come and fill in for him for 2 nights? And I was like, I said yes before I thought about it. And then I was kind of like, well, maybe I can, I don't know, But no, it was great. We've known each other forever, and back in the old days, we got them there. We had trouble. The Blasters had trouble getting gigs, for those of you who don't know Southern California, there's the east side of Los Angeles, there's the west side, and the west side's the swanky side. And the Blasters had trouble getting gigs on the west side. And then when we finally kind of cracked working on the west side, because we were from the east side, then we brought along Lobos and started giving them gigs opening for us, and then they took off from there. So it was old home week,
Yeah, that must have been amazing.
Yeah.
Such a good band.
A great band.
I also saw recently a picture of you backstage somewhere with Chuck Berry.
Yeah.
We just lost Chuck Berry, but that was just imagining the two of you together, and it made me realize you are one of those guys who has crossed paths with, or jammed with, or toured with, or recorded with so many legendary musicians, many of whom are no longer on the planet.
Yeah.
Are you going to write these stories down someday?
When everybody else is dead. I can mention names. Yeah, I've had some good times, I played guitar on Bobby Rush's most recent album, and that to me was just, I was 10 feet off the ground, because I love Bobby Rush, the great blues funk singer from Mississippi. But
and he must be 77 or something like that.
No, he's 82.
82.
Yeah, he's 82, and he puts all of us to shame. That guy's going forever.
Wow.
But Chuck Berry, it was this tribute to Chuck Berry that was in Cleveland, and so I had a kind of an in that my brother and I used to know this pitcher, Bobcat Cavett, who was a pitcher in the very tail end of the Negro Leagues, and Chuck Berry knew his family and knew Bobcat way back when. So when we were introduced, I just said, I'm old friends with Bobcat Cavett, and he's like, what? How did you know Bobcat? And blah, blah, blah. But what was really nice and surreal was Merle Haggard was on this gig. So I'm sitting talking with Merle Haggard, then I'm turning around talking to Chuck Berry, and I'm just going, this is a dream, right? This is some surreal dream. So,
wow. Yeah. All right, we'll write those stories down someday.
Yeah.
We'll get somebody to write them down for you. But meanwhile, there's a lot of stuff still going on. And I was just talking in the beginning of the show about, being not just gifted, but also disciplined and hardworking and creative and putting out stuff all the time. And your guy's been prolific for many, many years.
Well, as you say, you just keep going.
Yeah.
Our heroes when we were kids, Lightning Hopkins or Big Joe Turner or whomever, they went till they died. And so I always get kind of upset with people making fun of the Rolling Stones and things like that. I was like, well, they're just doing what they do.
Right.
And why do we have to stop, And I am, for whatever reason, I am extremely lucky that I can survive somehow doing what I love to do, because I have a lot of friends who can't. And so not a day goes by, sore feet, sore back, bad food, terrible motel rooms, lines at airports, whatever it is. When I wake up in the morning, I'm like, you're still lucky. You're still doing it, There's a gig tonight, and we're heading for it. And that's, you just keep doing it, as you said.
We're still lucky, too. Let's
yes, you are.
That you are still doing this is what I mean. Well, let's do some more.
You got it.
Yeah, you want to get Jimmy Dale out? And
hey, let's get Jimmy Dale Gilmore out here.
All right.